Hello, welcome to our Design Lab 2.0. I'm happy to have you here. In our Design Lab 1.0, we dealt with some lettermark and some mascot logotype. The lettermark was for beginners and the mascot was for advanced users. And we have to do it this way so that both parties can benefit and perform effectively. Now, in the Design Lab 2.0, we'll be dealing with the all-popular 21st century monogram logotype. Before we get into the definition, I think we have to address this in the empirical, historical manner, if that's a word. By the way, my name is Manuel. Join me as we explore the history of monogram brand logotype. So historically and interestingly, the monogram logotype can be traced to be first used by the the ancient Greek traders, who used these name initials to differentiate themselves from other brands. So these name initials could be the first letter of the first name and the first letter of the second name, or the first letter of the first name, second name, or the third name. A monogram should have more than just one letter initials for the design to be called a monogram, which takes us to understanding the basic principles of a monogram logotype. So gradually, most big brands like Coco & Coco Channels, Louis Vuitton, and the rest of these big brands started buying into the idea of using this logo brand style, which is called the monogram, to make their brand name. Okay, there are many principles guiding making of monogram logotype. I'm going to talk about a few which is applied to the few kind of monogram type we'll be designing in this particular project. One of which is that for a brand name to be called a monogram type, it must have about 2 or more name initials. Okay, these name initials can be combined together in multiple ways to establish the brand icon itself. Number 2 is that these names must not come in sequence. Okay, so for the fact that the name is the first word of the name is Howlett, the second is Packard, and last one is Owen. That doesn't mean it should be HPO. Okay, it could be HOP, it could be OPH, and it could just walk around in any way. Okay, a letter mark is now actually a monogram, and a monogram is not a letter mark. Okay, you can take those sequence in letter marks, but a monogram you can walk around anyhow you want to. Okay, the third rule is that you could design a monogram type with your alphabets in your PC without doing any sketch. You can also do it with your golden ratio after your sketch. So these are 3 important rules, which finally takes us into understanding the different types of monogram logo design. So these different monogram types comes in different styles, one of which is the circular version, the next is the hexagon, the next is the letter type, which could be some kind of flowers, some flares, some banners under it, and all of that. Okay, we'll be focusing more attention on the circular version, but we'll be doing a sketch and also using a basic text tool inside of Illustrator to create our 2 types of monogram logo styles. Okay, so this is to leave you with the option to choose whichever you want to complete your project with. So without wasting your time, let's get into practice. So welcome to the sketch. We'll be making a monogram logo brand name for a brand called Cereal Clan. So this just simply Cereal then Clan. Okay, so like we already know in the rules of this monogram type, the first initials are the most important. The 2 first initials are the most important. But what if in cases where clients have just one name and still need a monogram type? What you do is you use the first initial and the next that sounds as if it's the beginning of another word in the same word as the logo type. Okay, so here you have cereal, it could now be S and R over here. So as simple as that, and as we understand that, let's get into making this come to life. So first off, we'll be needing a ruler stick, a pencil, and a sheet of paper. Whatever, as I'm using, this is a carbon paper, and you could use an A4 paper or whatever kind to submit this assignment. So first thing I want you to do is not to get in and start sketching with your ruler stick. No. First thing I want you to do is to make a little bit of reference. I call this wireframing, or in building in real life, we call it blueprints. Okay, so we're going to make a blueprint of what actually we're going to sketch over here. So first off, we're going to write in an S. Usually a monogram logo type is usually tall or wide. It's not regular. Okay, we usually have tall and wide letters in one design to achieve what? An aim. I'm going to show you why and tell you why. I'm going to show you how and tell you why it is like so. So we're going to have an S over here. Okay, a wider S. Remember, this is just the wireframing, and we're going to have a K following that. Okay, as simple as that. This is just our wireframe. This is just basically what we want to come up with. If we are basically doing this for another brand, let's just choose another name, random name, to see what we can do with that. Let's say we are doing it for a brand called OA. Okay, OA, the O is not going to be just a common O like we know. It should be a wider version of the O, like so. Okay, and the A over here, cross bridging and getting to the other part. So perfect. So this is basically how monograms work. Because if you are trying to use a usual or a kind of regular O, it's not going to work over here because it's going to collide or take more parts of the logo initial. So that's one of the rules. Second rule is that there should be an outline, a space between the first letter and the next letter. This will give a little bit of consistency between the two different, or contrast between the two different letters, okay, making it easier for people to understand what actually you are trying to portray in the brand name. So with these two understood, we are going to build with the S and K, serial clan. Remember I told you this could be K and S when I was explaining this. This could be S and K. Whichever one comes first to make this stuff work, you can use it like so. Okay, it mustn't be this, it mustn't be that. So we could practically also make this a kind of make it, first of all we draw the K, okay, and then the S can be by the side of the K. So we now have a K and an S, okay? So it only depends on whichever one. Forget about how it looks here, okay? When you push this to Illustrator and start playing around with it, you have more leverage to control the shape and how it looks. But first, before we get into that with this, let's just make a modified version of what we have over here. So we are choosing this to work with, the S and K. So first thing I want to let you know is that there are points or edges to the lines we are going to build. So for what we have, we'll be using point 1 for the shape we'll be building. Okay, so now first off we are going to sketch out our S. Okay, before we do that, let's just get a vertical line. I'll call this a horizontal line, okay, then we'll get to measure a point. We say this is point 1, so this is point 1 over here, and this point 1 also, this is point 1 over here. So we get a second line. Perfect. And we get to curve this first line. This is an S, though we can't have a perfect line. Let's just give it a little bit of curve, and we get to the second shape to build. It's what we want. So we have the second curve, second line. Then we give our measurement again, point 1, remember. Okay, and we give another point 1 over here. It mustn't be perfect, just be close to perfect. So we have our point 1, and let's row. So we have the second line. The third line, we are going to add a little bit of curve also, the same curve size as we used in this other part. So let's measure the curve size. This is 0.1, 0.8. So let's give it a 0.1, 0.8. I'm going to tell you what all that means. So we're going to give the curve from here, and same to this. Perfect. So we're going to give another point 1 over here and point 1 over here. Okay, hope I'm right. So make sure your eraser is by your side, so if you make a mistake you can correct. So with this we have created our S as simple as that. Okay, so we have our curve extrude from this point. Okay, respecting the point 1 rule. Also the point 1 is also applied or applicable to this particular edge. How we are going to achieve that is also measuring these parts to make sure it's in point 1 is also accurate from that point. We do the same thing applying to these other parts. You can just do a little bit of sketch before you mark or shade it. Okay, perfect. So we have our point 1 at this edge. You still measure to make sure everything is perfect from there. That's no problem. Even if it's not perfect from here, when we get to Illustrator, we can make stuff perfect from there, even with the wrong calculation or wrong measurement from here. So don't mind all of that. And this is rough based on the fact that this is a tutorial. If it's a real stuff, I have more time to drink my cup of tea or cup of coffee and come back to work. But this, I'm doing it all through. So one other rule or important rule I want you to note is that every line must extrude to the edge of that particular shape. What I mean by this is, as we have this line is ending here and we have the other shape of the line from here, this is not supposed to be so. So let's create our basic golden ratio in Sketch. So by so doing, let's just draw a straight. That would be a fainted line, not a very thick one, okay? Very light and fainted line from here, and another very light and fainted line from here, and the light and fainted line from here, and the line and fainted line from here, another one here, another one here, and that is it. So we have our fainted lines, okay, giving us guides to what we want from here. The next thing we want to do is to add another fainted line from these other edges, okay. Have another fainted line from here. We have another line and a fainted line from the point 2. We can measure this. It must be point 2 for every edges. Don't mind what I'm doing. I'm just using a guesswork to complete this. I just want to be quick. So we have our point 2 line, another point 2 line. So perfect. Okay, we have our point 2 line. So these lines, these stuffs must touch to this edge. That's what I mean. Okay, so these lines must also touch to this edge, which is what respecting the shape as we have from this edge. And the same applies to this other part, respecting the shape as we have from this edge. So we have the perfect S sign. Okay, with these other edges, we have this completed. We can call this X2, X representing whatever digit, because if you're pushing this particular shot to the PC, it could be a totally different resolution. So X2 could be, this could be in pixels, this could be in meters, this could be in inches, this could be in centimeters or so, depending on the size where we are actually putting this particular image or logo on. So this X2 and this X2, this X2. The same applies to these other parts, okay? This X3 and this X3. How do I know? Okay, this is X2 plus X2, that's 1.0 plus 0.5. That's what makes up this empty space. 1.0 plus 0.5, as you can see from there. So this shape here is like 1.5 of the shape we have that created these stuffs over here. Okay, so now since we have this, let's create our K sign immediately. As you can see the S, the size of the S is horizontally stretched. This is to allow the K shine from inside, because if it is narrowed, the K sign might not be able to fit in clearly and give us the kind of concept we are looking at. So in this part, we can fill it if we want to. Okay, the parts we are filling are called the padding. So these parts we are filling now are called the padding style, or padding space. Okay, the padding space is the spaces inside of the icon or the letter we are designing, and the margin is the spaces outside of the icon. The space that gave rise to the breadth of this particular S is called the margin. Okay, the space that gave size to the S itself is called the padding. The padding is the X2 2.0 or X2, and the margin is the X3. Okay, that's the space what's outside of this shape. Now let's clearly make our K sign immediately. So K sign, we can start from this edge. You can just draw a longer line. Okay, very, very important thing. Let's measure and make sure we get to our point 1 shape. Let's still draw this one. Okay, so very important thing I want you to note, or I want you to always do, is make sure your measurement is almost close. Even if it's not perfect, let it be close to what works. Okay, that's number one. Number two, make sure you always give a, I talked about this over here. Okay, there should always be an outline or a space separating these two letters from the other. That's very important, very, very important. Okay, that's very important. So we have our shape here and we have the other shape over here. I'm just doing a rough one. We have our shape here and we have the other shape here. Let's draw the other part of the K. Okay, we have that part and we have the other part. Now, one thing I want you to note here, I wish I have my eraser here. One thing I never mentioned, you need an eraser too as a beginner. So you must not be perfectly someone who draws who is good in drawing or sketches. This is a rough sketch. I'm not good in drawing, okay? I could do this too. You too could do it. So one other thing I want you to note here, very importantly also, is this. Every shape must align according to its body parts. This body part is the K, and this other body part, which is the one extruding from this I call this the eastern part of this particular design. Okay, I will intend this to stroke or strike vertically, okay, according to the shape as we have here. So to make that work, what we are going to do is we are going to give it a lighter weight golden ratio line. Okay, so we're going to give it a lighter weight over here. We are going to give a lighter weight here, and we're going to give a lighter weight over here. Another one over here. So these lighter weights are stuff that guides the line where we actually going to put to an end the shape of what we have. So as you can see from there, so we have the K sign over here and we have this other one over here. You can fill it in if you wish to. Okay. So we do the same thing as applicable to these other parts. So let's stroke from this part to this part, and then from this part to this part. So don't actually bother if it's not perfect. When you get to Illustrator, you're going to feel that you're going to make that work. So perfect. As we all know, this is X2 and this X2 also. This X2 and this is X2. Those are the most important parts or spaces we are supposed to calculate. Okay, so we are going to draw another golden ratio line from here, another one from here. I don't think this is also necessary, okay, to make sure that our lines are perfect. The golden ratio from here and the golden ratio from here, as we can see, okay, the K is almost perfect, though it's not 100% perfect. So this is basically all we need for this. This is perfect for what we need, okay, to start working with Illustrator. Though this is not exactly what we're going to achieve. We're going to achieve something better than this, because when we get to Illustrator, we can now decide to make this thicker than it is, because we can't just start erasing stuffs and making them back. You can make it lighter than it is, you can make it shorter, you can make it wider, you know, play around stuffs as we want them to be. So this is for Serial Clan, as we made as an example over here. I'm going to show you the rest of the simple principles or less of the styling we are going to add to this to make it shine as a logo itself. You're going to be amazed with what we're going to come up with. But for now, what I want you to do is very simple. Get in with your mobile, get in with your sketching pad, with your pen and your ruler. Get a basic format of what we want, then get a proper format of it, then get me the name of the particular brand you are working with. I gave an instance with what we made over here, okay? So get a basic wireframe of what you want to do, okay? Then get the main work sketched with these golden ratios and measurements as we have from here. I told you about the measurements as we have the x2. These are the sizes of this element from here. The x2 must not be the x2 as we have from here. This is 0.1, 0.1, okay? 0.1 practically, we represented it with 2, which means this is 0.1 times 2. But in sizes that are 3.0, this is not going to be 0.1 anymore. It's going to be 0.1.5, okay, which is going to be 1.5. 1.5 is now representing the 3, which means 3 divided by 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, which is what we have here, 0.1, and 3 divided by 2 is 1.0, which is how we achieve this. Because if you are trying to make this shape to be 2.0 as we have in the ruler stick here, the shapes are going to be too bogus than what we expect. It's going to be too big, and you know, playing around with those stuffs are going to look some kind of fun. So welcome back, guys. This is what we have, as you can see from here. Now we are done with the first level of our Monogram class, which is the sketch level. Now to get to the number 2 level, which is the second level, you must need to pass through this particular test, okay? The sketch text is mandatory in the Monogram class. So I'll be providing you a couple of names. Some of these names could be 3 letters, some be 2 letters. You choose whichever you want to work with. What you're going to do is to get a piece of paper, okay? Make a rough sketch of your work like I talked about initially, okay? Then make the main work itself and write the name of the brand you are working with, okay? Write the full name of the brand you are working with, possibly. Make the first sketch and then make the first sketch actually and make the second sketch and then submit in the group. Just snap it, keep it on a flat table like so, okay? Put your camera above it and snap, then send. That's assignment number 1. And the rest of the information about this assignment will be provided in the description of this video and will be publishing in the group. Do have a wonderful day, guys.